The AT&T Center in San Antonio smelled like beer, leather boots, and something older. Something that belonged to a different America. One where men tipped their hats and meant it. By 7:30 in the evening, every one of the 18,000 seats was filled. The floor was packed with bodies pressed shoulder to shoulder, cowboy hats bobbing like a slow tide under the arena lights. Outside, the Texas sky had turned a deep, bruised purple. The last burn of sunset bleeding orange along the horizon before the night swallowed it whole. Dale Whitfield stood near the production trailer behind the main stage, a cigarette burning between his fingers, though he hadn't taken a drag in 4 minutes. He was 53 years old, built like a man who had once been athletic and had simply stopped caring about it somewhere around 45. His gray hair was combed back with the kind of precision that suggested he still believed in keeping appearances. His shirt, a pressed Western pearl snap, was already showing sweat at the collar. He stared at his phone. The number on the screen was not a number he wanted to see. Dale! Renee Caldwell appeared at his left shoulder, clipboard in hand, headset around her neck. She was 31, sharp-eyed, with dark hair pulled back tight, and the kind of permanent alertness that came from years of working concert logistics. She had started as an intern on George's 2019 run and had never left. Sound check cleared. Tommy says the monitor mix on stage right still has that low-end rumble, but George said it's fine. He's worked with worse. Good. Dale. Her voice dropped half a register. I need to talk to you. Not now. I found the Meridian invoice. The cigarette almost fell from his fingers. He caught it, took a long drag, finally, and exhaled slowly through his nose. Renee, the $43,000 that was supposed to go to the lighting rig lease. It didn't go there. She wasn't accusing. Her voice was level, almost clinical, which was somehow worse than anger. I'm not trying to make this bigger than it needs to be, but I need to understand what happened before someone else finds it. Someone else being George. Someone else being anyone. She held his gaze. I'm on your side, Dale. I always have been. But I can't be on your side if I don't know what side that is. He dropped the cigarette and crushed it under his boot heel. The crowd noise from inside the arena swelled. The opening act, a young kid from Lubbock named Bobby Ray Linden, was finishing his last song. The audience loved him. They always did. But they hadn't come for Bobby Ray. After the show, Dale said. We talk after the show. Renee studied him for a long moment, then nodded and walked back toward the stage entrance without another word. Dale pulled out his phone again. The number was still there. He pressed it to his ear. It rang twice. I told you I needed more time, he said when the line connected. The voice on the other end was not sympathetic. Inside the arena, Tommy Hurst was standing in the stage director's position just off stage left, watching Bobby Ray take his bow. Tommy was 47, lean, with the nervous energy of a man who ran on black coffee and deadline pressure. He had directed over 200 George Strait shows in the last 11 years. He knew every beat, every transition, every light cue, like he knew the lines in his own hands. His phone vibrated in his back pocket. He ignored it. It vibrated again. He pulled it out. The screen read, Carol. He stared at it until it stopped. Then he opened the message thread. Her last text had come in at 6:14 p.m., just as the production team was doing final checks. The papers are with my attorney. You'll receive them Monday. I didn't want to do this tonight, but you haven't returned my calls in 4 days, Tommy. 4 days. I'm done waiting. He read it twice. Then he put the phone back in his pocket and looked up at the stage, where Bobby Ray was waving his last goodbye to the crowd. Tommy pressed his earpiece. Bobby Ray's off in 60 seconds. Everybody in position. Let's give these people what they came for. George Strait was sitting in his dressing room on a folding chair, elbows on knees, looking at nothing in particular. He was 73 years old. His face carried every one of those years in the best possible way. The deep lines around his eyes were the kind earned from sun, and laughter, and loss, not neglect. He wore his black hat, a simple dark button-down, pressed jeans and boots that had been shined to a quiet gleam. He looked exactly like what he was, a man entirely at peace with who he had become. His guitarist, Phil Deacon, was warming up in the corner, running a slow pentatonic run up and down his Telecaster. Phil was 60, bearded, quiet. He had played with George for 22 years, and the two of them communicated on stage almost entirely without words. "How's the knee?" Phil asked without looking up. "Still attached," George said. "That's all you need." A knock at the door. His personal assistant, Donna Fielding, stepped in. She was 55, maternal, unflappable. 15 minutes, George. House is full. Standing room only in the floor sections. San Antonio always fills up, he said. Tommy says the stage is yours whenever you're ready. Bobby Ray's just finished. George nodded. He stood slowly, tested the knee it held, and reached for his guitar. Not the touring guitar, the one he kept for the moment just before going on. An old Martin that had more miles on it than most people's cars. He strummed a single open G chord, let it ring, and listened to it fade. "Let's go," he said. The roar that went up when George walked onto that stage was not the kind of roar that young artists heard. It was deeper, more weighted. It carried inside it something that sounded almost like grief. The grief of people who understood that moments like this one were not permanent, that the man walking toward the microphone stand represented something that was slowly, gracefully, irreversibly ending. He took his position. He looked out at the crowd. All those faces, all those hats, all those hands already raised before he had sung a single note. He smiled, the real smile, the one that had nothing to do with performance. "Good evening, San Antonio," he said into the microphone, and the place came apart. He opened with Amarillo by Morning, and the first verse hit the crowd like a warm wind. By the chorus, 18,000 people were singing with him, word for word, note for note, and the sound was so large it seemed to press against the walls of the arena. Tommy stood at his position with his arms crossed and watched the crowd monitors and felt something loosen in his chest. Not relief exactly, but the professional's version of beauty. The recognition that everything was working exactly as it should, even with Carol's text sitting in his pocket like a stone. Phil Deacon caught George's eye during the instrumental break and gave a small nod. George returned it. Between them, that nod meant, "We're good. The band is locked. The night is ours." Dale Whitfield watched from the side of the stage, phone dark in his hand now. For 3.5 minutes, he forgot about the Meridian invoice and the voice on the phone and the $43,000 and whatever was coming for him after the show. For 3.5 minutes, there was only the music. Then his phone lit up again. He looked at the screen. The message was from security. Gate C, backstage entrance. "Sir, we have a situation. Single individual. No credentials. Says he knows Mr. Strait personally. We ran the name. You need to come down here." Dale frowned and typed back, "Who is it?" The answer came in under 10 seconds. He read it twice. Then he read it a third time, as if the name might change. It didn't. He typed back, "Don't let him leave. I'm coming." He turned and looked at the stage, where George was moving into the second song, his voice filling every corner of that enormous space with something that felt like memory. Then Dale turned and walked quickly toward the backstage corridor, past the production cases and the cable bundles and the crew members in their black shirts with their radios and their focused, purposeful expressions. He pushed through the heavy door marked Gate C, authorized personnel only, and stepped into the service corridor beyond. At the far end, flanked by 2 security guards but entirely relaxed about it, stood a tall, lean figure in a plain gray jacket. No entourage, no publicist, no handler, just the man himself, hands in his pockets, looking at the concrete wall with the patient expression of someone who had been waiting much longer for much harder things than this. Clint Eastwood turned when he heard the door. He was 95 years old, and he moved like a man who had made peace with every year of it. His eyes were the same eyes, pale, still, measuring. The face was deeply lined now, the jaw less sharp than in the photographs everyone carried in their heads, but the presence was unchanged. It was not the presence of celebrity. It was the presence of someone who had looked at enough of the world to know exactly how much of it mattered. "You must be the road manager," Eastwood said. His voice was low and unhurried. "Dale Whitfield," Dale said, extending his hand. "Mr. Eastwood." We weren't expecting." "No," Eastwood agreed simply. "You weren't. Can I ask?" "I'd rather you just told George I'm here." He paused. "He'll want to know." Dale looked at the 2 security guards. They were both doing an admirable job of pretending to be professional rather than the starstruck men they clearly were. "I'll need to wait until a break in the set," Dale said. "He's on stage." "I know," Eastwood said. "I could hear him from the parking lot." A pause. Something moved across his face. Not quite a smile, but the architecture of one. "He still sounds like himself." "Yes, sir," Dale said. "He does." Renee Caldwell was at the production desk backstage when Dale came back through the corridor door, moving faster than his usual pace. She watched him cross the floor and pull up beside her without sitting down. "Clint Eastwood is in Gate C," he said quietly. She blinked. "I'm sorry?" "Clint Eastwood, the actor. He's standing in our service corridor." "Why?" "He says he knows George." "Does he?" "I don't know. But I'm not throwing Clint Eastwood out of a building." Dale rubbed his face. "Get me George's set list." "How long until intermission?" Renee pulled up the schedule on her tablet. 7 songs in. He's got 4 more before the break. About 22 minutes. "Okay." Dale exhaled. "Get Eastwood some water, and somewhere comfortable to sit. Treat him like a dignitary. Don't make it weird." "Dale," Renee said carefully, "this entire situation is weird. Then make it less weird. That's literally your job." She almost smiled. "I'll take care of it." Dale watched her go. Then he stood alone for a moment in the middle of the backstage floor, the music coming through the walls like a heartbeat. And he thought about the Meridian invoice, and the voice on the phone, and Clint Eastwood standing in his corridor, and Carol Hurst's text sitting in Tommy's pocket. And he had the distinct, uncomfortable feeling that the night was not going to go the way any of them had planned. He was right. The water Renee brought was sparkling, in a glass. Not a plastic cup. She had found the green room reserved for VIP guests. A narrow room with a leather couch, a low table, and a wall-mounted TV showing the live feed from the stage cameras. Eastwood sat on the edge of the couch and looked at the screen. George was mid-song. The chair, working the microphone with the contained, effortless physicality of a man who had been doing this for 5 decades. The camera caught his face in profile, the hat brim, the jaw, the way his eyes moved across the crowd like he was reading something in them. "He plays it like he wrote it yesterday," Eastwood said, almost to himself. Renee stood near the door, professional distance. "Can I ask how long you've known him, Mr. Eastwood?" He looked at her. "Long time." He paused. "We met at a Pro-Am golf tournament in Pebble Beach. Must have been 1993. 94. He was already the biggest thing in country music, and I was between pictures. We ended up in the same foursome. He looked back at the screen. Man can play golf. Does he know you're here tonight? A beat? No. He said it without apology. It was a last-minute thing. I was in San Antonio for something else, and I heard he was doing this run. Might be the last big tour. He watched George move into the final chorus of The Chair. Seemed like the right time to come say something. Say something? He turned to look at her again, and something in his expression closed gently, not unkindly, but with finality. "I'll wait for George," he said. Renee nodded and stepped back toward the door. Of course, intermission is about 15 minutes. Tommy Hurst had not looked at his phone again. He was operating on the narrow professional frequency that years of live event management had built into him. The ability to be entirely present in the work while carrying personal devastation at a low, contained burn somewhere in the background. It was not healthy. He knew it wasn't healthy, but it was functional, and functional was what 18,000 people in this building required of him right now. "Camera 3, push in on George for the bridge," he said into his headset. "Give me the wide on 4. I want the crowd in that shot. Beautiful. Hold it." His assistant director, Kevin Marsh, was beside him, a young man of 26, who moved with the hyper-alert energy of someone who had not yet learned to pace himself. "Tommy, we've got a report from Dale about a VIP in the green room. Unscheduled." "I know," Dale told me. Kevin lowered his voice. "Is it true it's—" "Yes," Tommy said. "Stay focused." "Right, yeah." Kevin adjusted his headset. Staying focused. Tommy watched the stage monitor. George was transitioning into easy come, easy go, and the band locked in behind him with the precision of a unit that had been playing together so long they breathed in time. Phil Deacon's guitar line came in like a conversation, not an accompaniment. The bass player, a quiet giant of a man named Roy Sutton, held the bottom of the song with the absolute calm of deep water. Tommy allowed himself one moment, just one, to think about Carol. 12 years. They had been married 12 years. He had missed her birthday twice, their anniversary once, and more school events and dinner parties and quiet evenings than he could accurately count. All of it sacrificed to the tour calendar, to the show, to the particular tyranny of being good at something that required your constant presence. She had told him plainly in the fall, "Tommy, I feel like I'm married to a concept, not a person." He had heard the words. He had not changed anything. And now the papers were with her attorney, and they would arrive Monday, and the 12 years would begin the legal process of becoming a number on a document. He pressed his earpiece. "Lighting, I need a tighter spot on George for the last verse. Get me that intimacy." "Good. That's it. Hold." The song swelled toward its end. The crowd was enormous and silent in the way that only happens when a song truly lands. 18,000 people holding their breath together, which was not silence at all, but something heavier and more alive. Tommy watched it. Despite everything, he felt the beauty of it. Then his radio crackled. "Tommy, it's Dale. Something's come up with the intermission schedule. I need 2 minutes before you bring George off. I've got a tight turnaround on the piano setup for the second half." 2 minutes, Dale said. "Please." Tommy exhaled. "You've got 90 seconds." Dale found George in the side stage alcove during the final notes of the penultimate first-half song. George was toweling his face, accepting a bottle of water from Donna, exchanging a quiet word with Phil. He was not winded. His eyes were bright. "Good crowd tonight," George said when he saw Dale. "Always," Dale said. "George, I need to tell you something before you go off." Something in Dale's tone made George look at him more directly. "What is it?" "You have a visitor in the green room." Dale paused. Clint Eastwood. The change in George's expression was subtle but real. A slight widening around the eyes, then a quick inward shift, like a man reorganizing something. "Clint's here. Walked in through Gate C about 40 minutes ago. No advance notice, no team. Just him." George was quiet for a moment. "How is he?" The question surprised Dale. Not what does he want, or how did he get in, but how is he? "He looks good," Dale said honestly. "Sharp, calm." George nodded slowly. "Tell him I'll be there in 5 minutes, soon as I'm off stage." He handed the water bottle back to Donna and looked toward the stage entrance. "But first," he gestured toward the stage with a small movement of his chin. "I've got one more song." He walked back out into the light, and the crowd came alive again, like something electric had been switched on. The green room felt smaller with both of them in it. George came through the door still carrying the residual warmth of 18,000 people's love, and Eastwood stood from the couch with the unhurried dignity of a man who moved only when he chose to. They looked at each other for a moment across the narrow room. Then George crossed to him, and they shook hands. A real handshake. The kind between men who had shared something that doesn't require constant maintenance to remain solid. "Clint," George said, "you could have called." "I know," Eastwood said. "I wanted to surprise you." "You did." They sat. Donna brought coffee that no one had asked for, set it down quietly, and left, pulling the door most of the way closed behind her. Dale remained just outside. "How long has it been?" George asked. Eastwood considered it. "The Pebble Beach thing. What, 3 years ago?" "4." "4," George said. "You shot a .42 on the back 9 and complained about every hole. The wind was wrong. The wind is always wrong when you're shooting a .42. Eastwood almost smiled. It was the same almost smile from the corridor, the one that suggested amusement without fully committing to it. Then it faded, and something more serious took its place. "I heard this might be the last big run," Eastwood said. "People keep saying that. Is it true?" George looked at his coffee cup. "I haven't decided. My knee has an opinion. My wife has an opinion." He glanced up. "What does yours say?" "I stopped doing things because I thought I should stop," Eastwood said. "Every time I did, I regretted it." He paused. "The things I regret doing, I can at least say I did them. The things I never did, those are the ones that stay." The room was quiet. Through the wall came the faint sound of the arena PA running intermission music, something modern and forgettable that neither of them acknowledged. "You didn't drive from wherever you were just to give me retirement advice," George said. Eastwood was quiet for a moment. He looked at his hands, large, still capable-looking hands that had held guns on screen and cameras off it, and probably 1,000 other things that never made the record. "I wanted to tell you something I should have said a long time ago," he said finally. "About your son." The word landed in the room like a stone dropped into still water. George did not look away. His face did not collapse, but something behind his eyes deepened. Clint Eastwood had known Bubba Strait. Not well. They had crossed paths at a charity event in 1999, just over a year before the accident. But they had talked, and something in that conversation had apparently stayed with Eastwood for 25 years, waiting for the right moment to be spoken aloud. "He talked about you," Eastwood said, "at that cattle industry benefit in Fort Worth. I was sitting next to him at dinner, and I asked him what he was most proud of. He was, what, 21? 22? And he didn't talk about riding or ranching or anything like that." He held George's gaze. "He talked about going to your shows, about watching you work. He said," Eastwood paused, choosing the words, He said he'd been to 100 concerts, and he'd never seen anyone make a whole room feel like they were the only person in it, the way his dad did. He said that was the thing he wanted to learn how to do: make people feel seen. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full, packed with everything that 25 years of carrying something like that could accumulate. George Strait sat with it. He didn't speak for a long moment. His jaw was set, and his eyes were bright in a way that had nothing to do with stage lights. "Thank you," he said finally. His voice was level, but quieter than it had been. "I should have found a way to tell you sooner," Eastwood said. "You told me now." Another silence, easier this time. "Come watch the second half from the side of the stage," George said. "You can hear the monitors from there. Phil Deacon plays guitar, like God designed the instrument for that specific pair of hands." Eastwood looked at him for a moment. "All right," he said. In the corridor outside the green room, Dale Whitfield had heard none of the conversation. But he had watched through the narrow gap in the door as George's face changed and then settled. And he understood, without needing the words, that something significant had passed between the two men. He stepped away from the door and leaned against the corridor wall. His phone was in his hand again. $43,000. The Meridian invoice. The voice on the other end of the line that had said, plainly and without emotion, "You have until Monday to make it right, or we go to the promoter." The promoter was Jim Callaway, a Dallas-based concert promotion veteran who had worked with George's team for 9 years and who had the particular combination of sharp business instincts and a long memory that made him a dangerous person to disappoint. Dale had worked with Jim for 6 of those 9 years and liked him well enough, which made the situation worse, not better. He had borrowed the money. That was the plain word for it, borrowed, though he knew that the paperwork would not use that word. The paperwork, if it ever surfaced, would use other words. Words that would end his career on the spot and do damage he couldn't fully calculate to George's tour operation. He had meant to pay it back. He had had a plan. The plan had not worked. He pushed himself off the wall and walked back toward the production floor. Renee was at the desk. She looked up when he came in. "How was the meeting?" she asked. "Fine." "Dale." She set down her tablet. "I need you to understand something. I found that invoice because I was doing my job. Not because I was looking for problems. But now that I've found it, I can't unknow it. And I won't lie if someone asks me directly." "I know that," he said. "So whatever you're going to do, you need to do it before Monday." He looked at her. "That's the second time tonight someone's mentioned Monday to me." Her expression shifted slightly. Not quite sympathy, but something adjacent to it. "Go fix it, Dale," she said quietly. "Whatever it takes." He nodded. And for the first time that evening, something that had been locked in his chest loosened enough to let him breathe. The arena lights dimmed to black, and the crowd noise rose in anticipation. That particular electricity that fills a room when 18,000 people simultaneously understand that something is about to begin again. Tommy Hurst stood at his position, earpiece in, eyes on the stage monitors, and for exactly the span of 3 seconds before George walked back out, he allowed himself to feel the full weight of Carol's text. Then the spot hit the stage, and George was there, and Tommy was back in the work. Camera 2, track left, wide shot on 1. I want the full crowd perspective. 3, close on George's hands. He watched the cuts assemble on the monitor bank. Beautiful. We're rolling. George opened the second half with oceanfront property, and the crowd responded with the particular joy of recognition. Not just of the song, but of the feeling it had always carried. The bass line from Roy Sutton came in deep and grounded, and Phil Deacon's guitar answered it like call and response, like two people finishing each other's sentences. From his position at the side of the stage, Clint Eastwood watched. He stood with his arms loosely crossed, not leaning on anything, watching with the same unhurried attention he brought to everything. The production crew gave him space. Nobody asked for a photograph. The professionalism of the room seemed to automatically understand that this was not that kind of moment. Bobby Ray Lyndon, the opening act, had come back to the side stage to watch the second half. He always did when he could, claiming it was the best music education available. He was 24 years old, genuinely talented, and completely unprepared for the sight of Clint Eastwood standing 8 feet away from him in the stage wings. Bobby Ray looked at Eastwood. Eastwood glanced at him. "Sir," Bobby Ray managed. Eastwood gave a single nod. Bobby Ray looked back at the stage with the expression of a man who had decided that nothing unusual was happening here, and he was absolutely fine. Backstage, in a small office adjacent to the production area, Dale Whitfield was on his phone. Not the panicked, avoiding phone call of earlier in the evening. A different kind. The kind a man makes when he has decided to stop managing a problem and start solving one. The person on the other end was Greg Whitfield, Dale's younger brother, a commercial real estate developer in Austin. They had not spoken in 4 months. The last conversation had ended poorly. "Dale," Greg said when he answered. Not warm, but not closed either. "I need to ask you something," Dale said, "and I need you to hear it without the history." A pause. "I'm listening." Dale explained it. Not all of it. Not the full scope of how the Meridian situation had developed, not the voice on the phone or the Monday deadline, but enough. The number, the need, the timeline. Greg was quiet for a long time when he finished. "You took it to cover what?" he asked finally. "The payroll gap from the Columbus cancellation. Insurance didn't come through fast enough, and I had 28 crew members waiting on checks." Another silence. "Dale," Greg said, "why didn't you just call me in April when this started?" The question sat there, and Dale recognized it for what it was. Not an accusation, but a genuine inquiry from a man trying to understand why the obvious solution had been bypassed. The answer was pride. The answer was the particular stubbornness of a man who had managed things on his own for 30 years and couldn't locate the muscle memory for asking for help. "I don't know," Dale said honestly. "I'll wire it Monday morning," Greg said. "Send me the account details tonight." "Greg, don't thank me. Just fix it. And call me before the next crisis. That's all I'm asking." Dale sat with the phone in his hand after the call ended. Through the wall, he could hear the crowd. That massive, collective sound that was not noise, but something more organized, more human. George's voice came through it like a thread pulled through cloth. He thought, "You handle a problem for 30 years, and then one night, it gets handled in 4 minutes by someone you should have called in April." He got up, walked to the production area, and found Renee at her desk. "It's being handled," he said. "Monday morning." She looked at him. Something in her expression that might have been relief, or might have been the professional satisfaction of watching a problem move toward resolution. "Good," she said simply. "I should have come to you sooner," he said. "Yes," she agreed. No softening of it, but no judgment either. "Will you?" He stopped. Started again. "The promoter, Jim Callaway. I'm going to need to have a conversation with him before this tour is over." "I know," Renee said. "You should. He's going to find out anyway." "Better from you." Dale nodded. It was not a comfortable nod, but it was a real one. Tommy's marriage was ending. He knew it with the same certainty he'd known it for 6 months. That specific knowledge that lives in the body before the mind fully accepts it. The way you know a storm is coming from the way the air changes before any cloud appears. Carol was not a cruel person. She was not vindictive or dramatic. She was a woman who had given a relationship the full measure of her patience and had finally reached the end of it. And the terrible thing about that, the thing Tommy couldn't find a way around, was that she wasn't wrong. He had chosen this. Not consciously, not maliciously, but in every practical decision over 12 years, every tour extended, every vacation cut short, every Friday night traded for a production meeting, he had cast his vote for the work, and Carol had counted the votes. During a brief lull in his monitoring responsibilities, a 4-minute segment where Kevin Marsh was handling the camera direction, Tommy stepped back from his position and went to the narrow corridor behind the stage-left platform. He sat on a road case. He took out his phone. He opened the message thread with Carol. He stared at her last message for a long time. Then he typed, "I know I'm too late. I know that. But I'm sorry, Carol. Not for a text. I mean it for everything. You deserved better from me, and I knew it, and I kept doing what I was doing anyway. I'm sorry." He sent it before he could reconsider. He sat with the phone face down on his knee. The music came through the platform above him. Check yes or no. The crowd singing every word. The sound enormous and warm and full of other people's uncomplicated feeling. His phone buzzed. He picked it up. Carol had written back, "I know you mean it, Tommy. That's never been the question." He read it twice. It was not reconciliation. It was not the door opening, but it was something. The acknowledgement of a shared truth between two people who had once loved each other well and had let something real go to waste. He wiped his face with the back of his hand, stood up, and walked back to his position. "Kevin, I've got it from here," he said into his earpiece. "Copy that," Kevin said. Out on the stage, George was 3 songs from the end of the main set. He moved between songs the way he always had. Not rushing, not milking, but naturally, the way a man moves through rooms he knows well. He spoke to the crowd in the direct, unhurried way that had always been his signature. Not performing warmth, but actually providing it. "I want to tell you something," he said between songs, the arena going quiet around his voice. "I've been doing this a long time, long enough that some of you have been coming to see me since before your kids were born. And now your kids are standing here with you." He looked out at the crowd. "That means more to me than I can explain in the time we've got. So I won't try. I'll just say thank you for every one of these nights. Every single one." The crowd responded, not with noise, with something bigger than noise, a kind of collective breath. From the side of the stage, Clint Eastwood watched, and something in his expression was no longer the patient observer's distance. It was present, actually present. George looked toward the wings, not searching, but the way a man's eyes drift toward something familiar. And for a moment, his gaze found Eastwood's. A look passed between them that lasted less than 2 seconds, and communicated something that a full conversation might not have managed. Then George looked back at the crowd. "This next one," he said, "is for everyone who ever did the right thing when it would have been easier not to." Phil Deacon played the opening notes of The Fireman, and the night moved toward something that everyone in the building could feel, even if they couldn't name it. Jim Callaway arrived at the arena at 9:45 p.m. He had not been expected. He was not on the guest list. He walked through the front of house with the particular confidence of a man who had been in enough arenas to know that certainty of movement will get you most places you need to go. He was 61, silver-haired, wearing a navy sport coat over a collared shirt. He carried himself with the compact authority of someone who had spent 4 decades making large financial decisions about things other people were passionate about, and had learned to keep his own passions carefully calibrated. He found Dale Whitfield at the production desk. Dale looked up and felt the specific cold of a man who has been preparing for a conversation and is suddenly in it before he finished preparing. "Jim," he said. He kept his voice neutral. "Dale." Callaway pulled a chair from an adjacent table and sat down without being invited. He looked at the stage monitors for a moment. George was mid-song, the crowd visible on the wide cameras, enormous and luminous. "Good house tonight." "Sold out," Dale said. "I know." Callaway reached into his jacket and produced a folded document. He set it on the table between them but did not push it toward Dale. "I think you know why I'm here." Renee, at the far end of the desk, had gone very still. "The Meridian account," Dale said. "The Meridian account," Callaway confirmed. "I've been patient, Dale. I want you to know I understand the Columbus situation. The insurance timing was genuinely bad. I get it." He paused. "But you made a decision without coming to me, and that's the part I can't move past without a conversation." Dale looked at the document but didn't touch it. "I should have come to you." "Yes," Callaway said, simply, without heat. "I've arranged for it to be resolved Monday morning. Full amount." Callaway studied him. "Your brother?" Dale blinked. "How did you—" "I've known Greg Whitfield for 15 years, Dale. He called me 20 minutes ago." Something shifted in Callaway's expression. Not quite a smile, but the architecture of one. "He wanted to make sure I knew the money was coming before I showed up here and made things awkward." Dale sat with that for a moment. His brother had called ahead, had run interference, had, in a way Dale hadn't anticipated, protected him. "What's in the document?" Dale asked. "A renegotiated terms addendum for the remaining 6 shows of the tour," Callaway said. "Nothing punitive. I'm not trying to end your career, but I need a paper trail that shows this was handled and won't happen again." He paused. "And I need you to agree to a monthly check-in call for the rest of the year." Dale looked at it. At the desk, Renee was breathing again. "Okay," Dale said. "I can agree to that." Callaway extended his hand. "I've worked with you for 9 years, Dale. Good people run out of runway sometimes. What matters is what they do next." He glanced at the stage monitors. "How's the show?" "Best one of the tour," Dale said, and he meant it. Bobby Ray Lyndon had stayed at the side of the stage through half the second set. He stood now next to Clint Eastwood in a silence that had, somewhere in the last 40 minutes, become comfortable. Neither of them had spoken much. The music didn't require commentary. During a brief between-song pause, Eastwood spoke without looking at him. "How long have you been touring?" Bobby Ray glanced over. "About 3 years. This is my first run as an opener on a major tour." "You nervous before you go on?" "Every time," Bobby Ray said. Eastwood nodded. "Good. The day you stop being nervous is the day you've stopped caring." Bobby Ray thought about that. "Is that true for acting too?" "Everything," Eastwood said. "Anything worth doing." They went back to watching the stage. George was moving into King of Broken Hearts, and the arena was doing that thing again. That collective breath. That enormous, shared stillness. "Can I ask you something?" Bobby Ray said. "You can ask. Do you think he knows how big this is? What this means to people?" Eastwood considered it for a moment. "I think he knows exactly what it means," he said. "And I think that's exactly why he still does it, the way he does it." Bobby Ray nodded slowly. "I want to do this for 50 years, he said, and it came out with the kind of raw honesty that only surfaces after midnight or in proximity to something genuinely great. "I want to be standing on a stage somewhere when I'm his age and have people feel like that." He gestured toward the crowd on the monitor. "Like that." Eastwood looked at him for the first time in a while. a full look. Then show up every night like it's the last one, he said. That's the whole secret. Show up like it matters, because it does. Bobby Ray was quiet for a moment. Then, I think that's probably the best advice anyone's ever given me. Save it, Eastwood said, not unkindly. You'll need it more in 10 years than you do tonight. Tommy Hurst was running the final segment of the show with the particular focused calm of a man who had resolved to keep something from breaking until the work was finished. He knew that after the show, there would be the drive to the hotel and the empty room and the full weight of what was ending. But not yet. Not while the show was running. Camera 3, stay on Phil for this solo. I want the full length of it. Don't cut away. He watched the monitor. Bill Deacon was playing with his eyes closed, his body moving with the guitar in the unself-conscious way of a man completely absorbed. The solo came out clean and unhurried, note by note by note, each one sitting in exactly the right place. Kevin appeared at his elbow. Tommy, Donna Fielding just came over from George's dressing room. She says, after the main set, before the encore, George wants 3 minutes. Alone. Tommy frowned. We've got the piano set up for Troubadour in the encore slot. 3 minutes blows the transition. I know. She said, 3 minutes. Tommy exhaled, adjusted. Tell the piano team to be in position for a 5-minute gap. Nobody rushes. Smooth and invisible. He paused. And tell Donna that if George needs 5 instead of 3, he's got it. Kevin nodded and went. The 3 minutes George asked for were not about the knee or the voice or any of the practical things the people around him might have assumed. He sat alone in the side stage alcove with his old Martin on his knee, not the touring guitar, the one he'd brought from home, and played one song all the way through, quietly, for no one. It was a song nobody else would have recognized. Not a hit, not a B-side. Something he had written in the mid-90s and never recorded, that he played sometimes when he needed to locate the center of himself. It had no official title. In his head, he called it Sunday Morning, though it wasn't about Sunday or about morning. He played it through once. The arena above him was doing the between-set thing, restless, expectant, the crowd buzz carrying through the floor and up through the walls. 18,000 people waiting. He finished the song and let the last chord decay. He thought about what Clint had told him. About Bubba, 21 years old at a dinner table in Fort Worth, talking not about himself, but about watching his father make a room feel seen. Make people feel seen. George sat with it, the grief of it and the grace of it together, the way they always came, not separate, but woven. Then he stood, handed the Martin off to Donna, picked up his touring guitar, and walked back toward the stage. He was 2 songs from the end of the encore when something happened that hadn't been planned and wasn't in the set list, and that no one in the production booth had called. George stopped between songs. He looked toward the side of the stage. In the wing, visible only to those close enough, Eastwood, Bobby Ray, a handful of crew members, he stood and said nothing for a moment. Then he spoke into the microphone. I've got a friend here tonight, he said. His voice was quiet, and the crowd went quiet to meet it. I'm not gonna embarrass him, but he told me something tonight that I'm going to carry for a long time. He paused. Sometimes people come back into your life at the right moment to remind you why you do what you do. And if you're lucky enough to have one of those moments, he looked out at the crowd. You just say thank you. A pause. So, thank you. He looked once toward the wing. Eastwood was watching him. That pale, still gaze. That face that gave nothing away, but withheld nothing either. George nodded. Small. Real. Eastwood returned it. Then George turned back to the microphone and said, This last one, I need you to sing it with me. And then it was Carrying Your Love With Me. And every person in that building knew every word. The noise when the house lights came up was not an ending kind of noise. It was the particular sound of 18,000 people who did not want to leave, who were actively resisting the transition from this version of the night to whatever came after it. The crew moved into strike mode with practiced efficiency, but slowly, as if even they needed a few extra minutes. Backstage, the green room had been reorganized. Water, food, the quiet hum of post-show logistics. Dale was at his desk finishing a message to Greg. Renee was running through the post-show checklist with Kevin Marsh. Tommy Hurst was doing a last sweep of the stage monitors, making sure the recording rigs had captured everything cleanly. He paused at the monitor station and pulled out his phone. One more message from Carol, time-stamped during the encore. I watched the live stream of the last song. It was beautiful, Tommy. Take care of yourself. He read it 3 times. It was not an opening. It was a closing, but a gentle one. A closing that acknowledged what had been real before it ended. He thought that maybe that was the best he could hope for, and that maybe best was enough. He typed back, "You too, Carol. I mean that." He put the phone away and finished the sweep. George found Eastwood in the green room corridor, preparing to leave. The crowd sounds were still audible but diminishing. The arena beginning its slow exhale. "You don't have to rush off," George said. "I know," Eastwood said, "but I do. Early morning tomorrow." He looked at George steadily. That was a hell of a show. The crowd was generous. The crowd was right, Eastwood said. They stood for a moment in the narrow corridor with the production noise around them, road cases being rolled, crew calling to each other, the machinery of aftermath. "What you said out there," Eastwood said, "you didn't have to do that." "I wanted to," George said. "It was the right thing." Eastwood nodded once, the nod of a man who understood right things. "What you told me," George said, "about Bubba." He paused. "I've had a lot of people tell me things about him over the years. Some of it helpful, some of it not." He met Eastwood's eyes. "Yours was the one I needed." Eastwood held his gaze. "I should have found you sooner," he said. "You found me tonight," George said. "That's what matters." A beat. The 2 men looked at each other. The singer and the filmmaker, both past the age when time feels infinite, both carrying what time had given and taken, standing in a service corridor in San Antonio after a concert that would be talked about for years by the people who were there. Eastwood extended his hand. George took it. "Take care of that knee," Eastwood said. "Take care of the back 9, George said. Eastwood almost smiled. This time, it reached his eyes. Then, he turned and walked down the corridor toward the exit, unhurried, not looking back, moving through the post-show traffic with the same self-contained ease with which he had arrived. 2 security guards fell into flanking positions without being asked. The corridor door swung open. The San Antonio night came in briefly, warm, smelling of the city. And then the door swung closed, and he was gone. George stood there for a moment. Donna appeared at his elbow. "Car's ready whenever you are." "Give me a few minutes," he said. She nodded and withdrew. He stood in the corridor alone. The sounds of the arena were still around him. The industry of 30 crew members doing the work of undoing the night, stacking and wrapping and rolling everything back to zero. In 12 hours, they would do it again in Austin. In 3 weeks, the tour would end in Nashville. And then whatever came next would come. He thought about Bubba at 21 years old, at a table in Fort Worth, being asked what he was most proud of. Make people feel seen. He had been doing that, trying to do that, for 50 years. Had not always known that was the word for it. had just followed the instinct toward authenticity, toward showing up as himself, toward choosing the real note over the impressive one. And somehow, it had mattered to a young man who had talked about it at a dinner table to a stranger, who had held on to it for 25 years, who had driven to San Antonio on a Wednesday and walked through Gate C without a publicist or a plan because the moment had finally felt right. He reached for his guitar case, which Donna had left against the wall. He picked it up. Then he walked down the corridor, not toward the car, but back toward the stage. Back into the empty arena where the crew was working, and the last of the audience was filing out, and the lights had come up full, washing the space in the ordinary brightness of after. He stood at the edge of the stage and looked out at the emptying arena. The seats still held the shapes of the people who had been in them. The small, accumulated compressions of 18,000 evenings pressed briefly into a space together. The floor was scattered with the debris of presents. A dropped program, a plastic cup, a single cowboy hat left on a floor seat, whose owner would be back for it, or maybe not. Bobby Ray Lyndon appeared beside him. The young man had evidently had the same instinct, to come back to the stage after, to stand in the space before it became just a room again. They stood together without speaking for a moment. "Good night," Bobby Ray said finally. He meant it the way it deserved to be meant. "Yeah," George said. "It was a good night." "Can I ask you something?" Bobby Ray said. "You can ask. That thing you said, out there, toward the end, about the friend reminding you why you do it." He paused. "What is it, for you? Why do you still do it?" George looked out at the emptying arena. The question deserved a real answer, and he took his time with it. "Because the songs are true," he said finally. "Every song I've ever sung that mattered. It was true. Not my story necessarily, but true. And when something true lands in the right room with the right people, something happens that can't happen any other way." He paused. "I've been standing in rooms when that happened for 50 years, and I have not found a way to stop wanting to be in those rooms." Bobby Ray was quiet. "That's it?" he said. "That's it," George said. Bobby Ray nodded slowly, the nod of a young man filing something carefully away. George picked up his guitar case and turned toward the stage exit. "Bobby Ray," he said. "Yeah? You're going to be fine." He said it plainly. Not as encouragement, but as assessment. The way a man with 50 years of experience makes a call. "You've got the thing." Bobby Ray looked at him. "What thing?" "The thing that makes people believe you when you're singing," George said. "You can't teach it. You either have it or you don't." He held the young man's gaze for a moment. "You have it." Bobby Ray didn't say anything. He nodded, and his expression did what young people's expressions do when they have been told something by someone whose opinion is the only opinion that matters in that particular moment. George walked off the stage. In the parking lot, Dale Whitfield sat in his rental car with the engine off and the window down, letting the San Antonio night air come in. The arena was behind him, still lit up, still humming with the work of breakdown. Ahead, the city spread out in its nighttime grid of amber and white. He had the document from Jim Callaway on the seat beside him. Signed. Handled. The call with Greg had been short and practical, and had not resolved the 4 months of distance between them, but had opened a door that had been closed. He would call him next week. He would have the kind of conversation that should have happened in April. He thought about the $43,000, and about the Columbus cancellation, and about the 28 crew members who had waited for their checks, and gotten them because he had done a difficult thing imperfectly. He thought about Renee saying, "Go fix it," with no softening around the edges, because that was who she was, and why he valued her. He thought about 30 years of managing things alone, and about the particular loneliness of competence, the way being good at something can slowly convince you that asking for help is weakness, when actually it is just the other side of the same skill. He started the car. He drove back to the hotel with the window still down, the warm Texas air moving through the car, George Strait's voice still in his ears from the last song of the night. Renee Caldwell left the arena at 11:30, the last of the production staff to go. She walked through the nearly empty parking lot to her car, keys in hand, the click of her boots on the asphalt the only sound. She sat in the driver's seat and took a breath. The Meridian situation was resolved, or would be Monday. Dale had handled it, or started to. Jim Callaway had been managed. The show had run cleanly. Nobody had been hurt. The thing that could have broken apart had instead been caught and held together by people doing their jobs at exactly the right moment. She thought about Dale's face when she had told him to go fix it. The particular look of a proud man who has run out of options and is finally letting himself be helped. She had worked for men like Dale Whitfield for 10 years, and she understood the architecture of that pride, the way it was built from genuine competence and slowly reinforced into isolation. She did not judge it, but she had watched it cost people more than it needed to, enough times to know what it looked like when the price got too high. She thought about doing this job for another 10 years, or 20, or whether there was a version of herself that ran something. Not for someone else, but her own operation, with her own name on the door. The thought arrived with unusual clarity, the way certain thoughts do after long, high-pressure nights, when the adrenaline is down and the truth is up. She started the car. Tomorrow, she would start making a list. Tommy Hurst drove to the hotel with the radio off. He had done the full post-show debrief with Kevin, settled the production notes for the Austin show, shaken hands with the venue operations team. He had done everything the job required. And now he was in the car, in the Texas dark with the work done, and only himself left. He and Carol had been married 12 years. He had missed her birthday twice, and their anniversary once, and more than he could count of the smaller things. The Tuesday dinners, and the Sunday mornings, and the particular quiet of being in the same room with someone you love when nothing is happening. And that is exactly enough. He could not get those things back. He understood that now with a clarity that had been building for months and had arrived fully formed tonight. The papers would come Monday. He would sign them. He would do it without fighting it, because fighting it would not be fighting for her. It would be fighting against the consequence of his own choices, and he was not willing to do that to her. But he would do it differently from here. Whatever came next, whatever form the rest of his life took, he would not offer the best of himself to the work at the expense of everything else. He would find the balance he had been claiming he would find for 12 years, and had not. Not because Carol would see it. She was done watching. But because it was the right thing. And the right thing had a value that did not depend on being witnessed. He parked in the hotel lot. He sat for a moment. Then he got out of the car and walked into the building and took the elevator to his floor and let himself into the empty room. He turned on the lamp. He hung up his jacket. He sat on the edge of the bed. Then he picked up the phone and called his daughter, Emma, 17, in her junior year, living with Carol in Nashville. It was late. She picked up on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. "Dad? Hey, Em. I'm sorry to call so late. It's okay. How was the show?" "It was good," he said. "It was really good." He paused. I wanted to hear your voice." A beat. And then, in the uncomplicated way of a 17-year-old who still believed in the possibility of her father, "I'm glad you called, Dad." He sat with that. "Me too," he said. "Go back to sleep." "Okay." A pause. "I love you." "I love you too, Em." He hung up, and sat in the quiet hotel room in San Antonio and felt the full weight and full worth of the night, everything it had cost, and everything it had given, the way those things are rarely separate. George Strait arrived at his hotel at midnight, Donna having handled the logistics with the quiet efficiency that made her essential. He went to his room. He set his guitar case down. He sat in the chair by the window, not on the bed, in the chair, the way he always did after a show to let the night settle. San Antonio spread out below him, the grid of lights going on to the edge of visibility. Somewhere out there, Eastwood was in a car, or an airport, or a hotel, carrying whatever he carried, moving on in the unhurried way that was entirely his. Somewhere out there, 18,000 people were having their own versions of going home. The drive with the radio up, the conversation in the parking lot that continued too long because nobody quite wanted to end it, the quieter version of the question, when is the last time I'll see him do this? George thought about Bubba. He did this often, not with the acute pain of the early years, not with the shattering grief that had been the private counterweight to the public career all through the early 2000s, but with the particular quality of love that survives loss and becomes something you carry rather than something that carries you. Bubba had been 23. He had been full of the thing young people are full of when they are pointed in the right direction. That specific, combustible combination of talent and willingness, and the deep-down knowledge that the world is open, make people feel seen. It was not advice his son had given him. It was just a thing Bubba had observed, the thing that made him most proud. And Clint Eastwood, 95 years old, had driven to San Antonio and walked through a service corridor to deliver it, because it had been sitting with him for 25 years, and the moment had come. George looked out at the city. He thought about the remaining shows: Austin, Tulsa, Kansas City, Oklahoma City, Nashville, 6 shows, and then whatever came after 6 shows. The question he had not answered and did not need to answer tonight. He thought about Phil Deacon's guitar and Roy Sutton's bass, and the way 18,000 voices sounded when they were all singing the same words at the same time. He thought about Bobby Ray Lyndon standing at the edge of the stage afterward, 24 years old, carrying the specific ambition of someone who had just been close enough to something great to understand what they were aiming at. He thought about the songs, the ones he had recorded and the ones he had carried for 30 years, and the one with no official title that he played alone before encores, and that was somehow still the most true thing he knew how to put into music. He reached into his guitar case, not the touring guitar, the old Martin. He sat with it in the chair by the window, not playing it, just holding it, the way you hold something that has been with you long enough to feel like an extension of yourself. The city lights went on in every direction. He was 73 years old, and he had spent 50 of those years making people feel seen, without always knowing that was the word for it. And sitting in a San Antonio hotel room at midnight, with the weight of a good show, and the gift of an unexpected conversation, and the quiet, permanent presence of the people he had loved and lost, he felt, without drama, without performance, for exactly himself. Grateful. Entirely, simply grateful. He set the guitar back in its case. He got up and went to bed. Outside, the Texas night was warm and clear. Somewhere across the city, the AT&T Center stood dark and empty. 18,000 chairs returned to their silent positions. The stage stripped back to bare boards and steel. The cables were coiled. The road cases were locked. The lights were off. But the sound that 18,000 people had made together when they recognized something true, that does not go when the lights go off. It stays in the walls, It stays in the floor. It stays in the particular way the air of a room holds the memory of being full. It stays in the people who were there, who will carry it home and set it down somewhere careful and return to it years from now. Not as nostalgia exactly, but as evidence. Evidence that something was real. That on a Friday night in San Antonio, Texas, a man stood on a stage and sang the truth, and 18,000 people heard it and sang it back. And somewhere in the dark, outside the city, a 95-year-old man was moving through the night with a small thing delivered, and a long weight lifted, and he was driving or flying or sitting in the particular quiet of a man who has done the thing he needed to do. And a young man named Bobby Ray Lyndon was lying in his hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the words, "You have the thing," saying them back to himself in the dark, filing them somewhere deep where the important things go, the things that don't need to be taken out and looked at because they are always there, load-bearing, structural, part of what holds everything else up. 6 weeks later, after the Nashville show, the last show of the tour, George Strait walked off the stage at the Bridgestone Arena and into the wings where Dale and Renee and Tommy and the full production team were waiting. The crowd was still going. They always went longest in Nashville. He shook hands. He hugged people he had known for 20 years. He stood in the controlled chaos of a successful final night with the equanimity that was his defining characteristic. Not detached, but steady. A man fully in the moment who does not need the moment to be more than it is. Dale pulled him aside briefly. "George, I owe you a conversation I've been putting off." He explained the Meridian situation in 3 sentences. Clean, honest, no excuses. It's been resolved. But you should have known sooner, and I'm sorry you didn't. George looked at him for a long moment. "Is it handled? Completely? Is it going to happen again?" "No." George nodded once. "Then it's handled," he said. And he moved on to the next person, because that was also who he was. The thing that needed fixing had been fixed. What he had no use for was holding the hammer after the nail was in. Renee left the tour operation 8 months later to start her own production consultancy in Nashville. She named it Caldwell Lave. Her first client was Bobby Ray Lyndon, whose debut album had come out to strong reviews and who needed a production team for his first headlining tour. She built him something lean, precise, and flawlessly run. Her second client, 6 months after that, was a call she did not expect. Jim Callaway's office, looking for a production consultant on a new touring operation he was launching. She took the meeting. She took the job. She did it on her own terms, with her name on the door. Tommy Hurst signed the divorce papers on a Monday. He did it at his kitchen table in Nashville with a cup of coffee, and the blinds open to the gray November morning. And he did not spend a long time on it. He read each page, signed where required, and put the documents in the envelope. Then he called Emma and asked if she wanted to have dinner that Friday. She said yes. He started saying yes to more of the things he had said no to. The Friday dinners, the Sunday calls, the specific smallness of being present in an ordinary way. He did not do this to earn something back. He did it because it was who he wanted to be now that the only person responsible for who he was him. He took a 3-month break from touring. He read, he cooked. He drove Emma to school twice a week when she'd let him. He found, in that interval, that the part of himself he had given entirely to the work had not disappeared. It had been waiting. It just needed something else to share the space. He went back to touring in the spring, better at it somehow, more alive in the room. Bobby Ray Lyndon played his first headlining show in Lubbock, Texas, on a Tuesday night in March. The venue held 1,200 people. It sold out. He stood backstage in the minutes before going on and felt the fear, the clean, functional fear of someone who cares deeply about what is about to happen. And he thought about what Eastwood had said in the wing at the AT&T Center. The day you stop being nervous is the day you've stopped caring. He walked out and gave them everything he had. Clint Eastwood never spoke publicly about the night in San Antonio. He did not mention it in interviews. He did not post about it. He carried it the way he carried most things, quietly, with the understanding that some experiences are diminished by being explained. But 6 months later, at a small private dinner in Carmel, he was seated next to a young filmmaker who was asking him about what he had learned over the years about telling stories that mattered. And Eastwood thought for a moment and then said something the young filmmaker would repeat for the rest of her career. Find the true thing, then trust it. Don't explain it. Don't dress it up. Just put it in the room and let people recognize it. He paused. People always recognize the true thing. That's the one thing you can count on. The young filmmaker wrote it down. She did not know where it had come from, which conversation, which room, which night had produced it. But that was the nature of the true things. They travel. They pass from person to person, across tables and corridors and concert halls and hotel rooms, moving through time in the way that only the real things move. Not fading, but deepening. Finding the right ears at the right moment. Doing what they were always going to do. On the last night of the Strait tour, after the crowd had finally gone home, and the arena was dark and the production crew was breaking down the Nashville stage, a single roadie named Carl Prewitt, 28 years old, first major tour from a small town outside of Knoxville, stood alone on the bare stage for approximately 45 seconds before his crew chief called him back to work. He stood there in the empty arena. He looked out at the dark rows of seats. He thought, I was here for this. Then he picked up his cable and went back to work.